stars also
And he wanted
giving
to,
them
I think he
feedback.
wanted to like see if the clicker works. Probably if we stick with my computer, it's just one of those.
Has to be something. You can't catch those kids unless there's something to catch them.
אוקיי.
And it just has to be Meetup between
מצד שני אני לא רואה איך אני קשור לדבר.
לא, כי אנחנו רוצים להביא את יש את הילדים, ויש ילדים.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
That's your
ages
default.
ago.
Yeah. Ages ago. Okay.
I'm not cool enough.
Okay, so you want 9 minutes?
זהו, אני לא רואה, כאילו, דברים מעשיים יותר זה באמת רובוטים וכאלה, VR, אני לא רואה מה...
כן,
יש דברים לעשות,
אבל...
you have to use a little bit of demayon, and there will be a writer who's used to dealing with, who's written before for science journal.
תהיו רק...
זה לא עבודה כזאת, זה משהו שהוא תכנן לו בשביל הטק, שמישהו יעשה את זה. התפקיד שלנו עכשיו,
So just
לבדוק שהסטודיו לא יעשה מזה חדישה. אתה יודע שתמיד אפשר...
calculated. That's okay.
And if you want, like him when she was little, she always wants another poodle or a Pomeranian. So she's, I would say 90% chance she takes a puppy.
זה אפס.
You want, if you want.
זהו, 20 איש?
I don't want helping you.
I might have yours.
Okay, so that was your next one.
Let's use your computer, see if the clicker works, because I think that's like the biggest.
But you don't have to.
That's okay, we just want to see if the clicker works. No,
This one doesn't work.
But we also need to see part of the screen. We need to see at least part of the
Yes, no, I want to tell you there's a problem. It's, you have to raise it. It's cutting the screen.
Guys, we're having just a little bit of technical
Maybe the battery?
problem. In 2 minutes I think we'll solve it and we'll begin, and I'm sorry for the delay. But also I have a lot of people that were registered and probably they are stuck in traffic, so if we wait maybe up to 5 minutes maybe it's okay. And yeah, thank you for your patience.
Maybe they went to the wrong...
And by the way, I am Omri, and yeah, the team, and it's supposed to be a community and not a lecture style, so I'll be happy to just engage and yes, to know who are you. And yeah, I will go back to the technical.
The lecture is in English because
Well,
the others,
we found out that there are members of the community that are actually English speakers, and so we thought it's being more inclusive.
yeah,
And this
I
is the
wonder
reason.
if they are here now.
So we will check, and if nobody speaks in English in the beginning of the lecture, then maybe we can switch to Hebrew. For me, it will be for sure easier.
Yeah, it's easier for English.
Okay, great. So you're welcome, and we're happy to have you.
Welcome.
So in the end, sometimes it's like 2 or 3 people out of the crowd, but still, I think that augmented reality is right now it's a global community, and we try to do that exactly, and we are looking outside as well as inside, and so yeah, you're welcome, and
Google just
we're
came
happy
out.
to have you. And also the co-organizers, some of them are actually English speakers, so yeah.
Google just came out with the simultaneous translation earphones. $150, and you can listen to it in Swahili if you want. Maybe. It might not work.
We need
I have the presentation, but not the clip. We can switch computers and show the clip.
Do you want to try out the clicker?
Let's see.
So I think it would be better to use Bridge Computer, okay, with the clicker, because they have all the Microsoft programs. Okay, and just switch computers.
It's actually the Google Slides presentation.
Fine with that, no problem.
Yeah, so when I introduce speakers, I'll just...
People already know.
כולה, מישהו waiting with
לא הכי יציב, אבל...
זהו, לא אכפת לי, תעשה מה שאתה חושב שכן.
אני אגיד לך משהו, אבל כשמצלמים מסך, שנגיד שהמרצה מדבר על הנושא, זה תמיד נראה יותר טוב שזה באמצע. שזה כאילו זה מפה, כאילו למסך. אפשר
עושים את זה...
לא בא, כאילו, כשמישהו מייצג את עצמו, עדיף מהצד.
כן.
כאילו, אז אתה יכול...
אז אני אשים שם?
כן, אפשר, בוא נתקדם, בוא נראה.
או פרפס. לא, אבל זה לא יבוא.
זה יהיה יותר טוב, עוד זווית, נכון?
כן, רואים פה טוב.
הייתי באמזון עם גלגלת, כמו סקייטבורד, שאתה מרים ככה.
וזה תמיד עומד במקום,
כן,
נכון?
אתה יכול גם להזיז את זה על הגלגלת.
אני מת על כאלה.
כן, זה כאילו, זה כזה דבר קטן.
גם אנחנו נצטרך,
מעולה.
אתה תרצה גם להגדיל את זה, אבל כאילו שהם באמצע כאילו הפרזנטציה,
זה
אתה יכול טיפה למעלה להעיף את הרגליים שלהם, את הרגליים לא צריך.
אתה יודע משהו? אני אדאג לשלי, כי עם שלי אני אעשה את זה יותר יפה.
זה צריך להיות כזה. לונג שוט.
כן, אתה עושה את הכל אחר.
אתה עושה פנסי אז.
אוקיי.
אשתי בצוות, אני עוזר.
אז זה הופך להיות כבר משימה. אני אומר, זה הופך להיות משימה מעבר להתנדבות.
Okay, so Ari, can you call outside? Ari, can you call outside if somebody will stop?
Say one bad thing about this location is the traffic right by the summit. It's really bad. It backs up a few blocks. במיוחד אם אתה בא כאילו קרוב יותר לחוף, זה באמת יש בעיה, כאילו זה 10-15 דקות לעבור את הנקודה הזאת. כן.
Yeah? Okay, so we will start. And hello again, I'm Omri. And this is actually our third meetup. After a somewhat longer hiatus of over a month. Because of the holidays and everything, it took some time before we met again. And this time we have two lectures lined up from people that are experienced in augmented reality. They did projects with that. They already tried things and failed and tried things and succeeded. And I think it's for me, it's very interesting to learn from their experiences. And without further ado, I will just introduce me and my team. And some people ask what we are doing and how come you're organizing augmented reality meetups. And also later I will introduce Andrea, which is the co-organizer, and she will speak a little bit. And so the agenda for today is the welcome, it's right now. And then we'll talk just a little bit about what happened in the last month. And we will start a new section for this meetup, which is community shout-out. We'll talk about it when we reach it. And then the two lectures in the end will stay for more questions and answers if somebody wants to talk to us. And I will say it again for people who just came in, that it's not supposed to be kind of a lecture, come to study and sit quietly. We really do want to engage the community, and so you can stop me and we can talk. And if you don't feel so comfortable with the English, such as me, then you are welcome to also ask in Hebrew, and we will work it out. And yeah, just feel free. I think a lot of people came today, so maybe it feels like a little bit big, but usually we're quite intimate. Okay, so I'm a part of a startup, and this is my team is spread around here. And what we do is multi-user augmented reality. And some people asked me in the last two meetups maybe to introduce a little bit more of what we are doing. And basically, if there is today, what is possible with AR-Kit and AR-Core is that each one can see his own augmented reality world, his own augmentations. Let's say it's the dragon, and so I can I will open the Dragon application, I will see it this spot, and someone else will open another device and they will see it there. And it will not be synchronized, it will not have the same experience. And this is exactly the problem we're finding, or we actually solved, and we already have a demo that shows that. And so this is what we are working on. But not only that, we have a longer term vision, and we want to, or we're working on advancing augmented reality technologies. And if you want to check our demo, then you can go to the App Store and just, it's kind of a game, and you're welcome to try it. You do need to have 2 enabled devices to check it out. And that's about us, that's it. So a little bit about what happened in the last month, because we are following everything that happens, and so maybe I think just to summarize what we think. So AirKit actually from the last meetup, we met at the day that AirKit was launched and iOS 11 launched to customers, and I think a lot of people were really hoping for a lot out of it, and there were really high expectations, which later on, when Apple didn't really put AR in the center in the event, they were kind of, what's happening? We put so much effort into that, and it's not happening yet, kind of thing. So there is was a lot of disappointment in this in the augmented reality community about that. But basically, the reason that it was like that, or according to rumors, that's it. That augmented reality apps that were available at the time of the launch, and actually I think up until today, are not good enough. Are not good enough as applications, not as augmented reality applications. If augmented reality adds some value, it also adds some difficulties, and I think we'll hear about that a lot from the guys that we'll talk later. So, but basically, there are not so many good apps, and so of course users will not just because of some kind of technological hype will adopt these apps yet. And I think one of the reasons people expected more is that because videos that you make of augmented reality applications will look really cool, especially the portals and these kind of things, and we talked about it. That basically the field of view of a phone or iPad is very limited, and as long as we don't have eyeglasses or smart eyeglasses, and it's a big problem for experiencing augmented reality as it should be. And so the barriers that you have to go for a user to adopt your application is higher, because it really has to give them more value, and it's not just about the wow effect, okay? And I will say one other thing that is kind of like people in augmented reality don't really treat it so much, but I think it's important, is that the iPhone X that was launched in this event was it actually kind of like takes the front-facing augmented reality, which is kind of downplayed by a lot of people in the community, is taking it to the next step. And right now, actually, most of the success that augmented reality has is because of Snapchat and this kind of face filters, and I think it's wrong to underestimate it. So this is a little bit about the launch that was since our last meeting, and a little bit about what part of our job, or what we do because we are working in this field and we're trying to innovate, is that we really go over almost all the apps that are out there and try to check them out and learn from there. And we noticed a few things about the apps that are actually available right now. And first of all, I mean, the technology that was released is really awesome, but most applications utilize only one function of it, the function that is correlated to the tracking. The 6DOF is 6 degrees of freedom. It means that when the device moves 1 meter to the right, then you can use that as a controller in the user experience. And it enables a better VR experience. And actually, most of the apps that we saw that were any good were kind of like companies that worked in virtual reality for some time, created really good landscape and user experience application, and then ported them to augmented reality and used this feature as a controller for the VR experience. And the popular category, if we try to kind of like summarize what are the popular categories for apps, I think that you can probably add one or two more categories, but these are the biggest ones. And the biggest one out of all is, of course, games. I think most of the apps that are out there and the ones that are downloaded, they are games. And well, it's links, but I'm not going, because we have so much content today, I'm not going to talk today a lot, and I'm not going to show a lot of demos, so my whole thing has to be like 5 minutes. So I'm speaking fast because of that, and I will not show demos today, but I will publish later the slide, and you can check out a few demos if you want. And there are VFX kind of cinema making apps, and one of the Israeli ones is actually been made here, and one is sitting here today, right, Chaim? So if you want to talk to him about that and see what he has, I think it's pretty cool. And we'll talk maybe in one other meetup next one. Some messaging apps that implement augmented reality. Okay, there are a few directions you can take that. I will not say a lot more. E-commerce, for example, Amazon, right? Amazon and IKEA and some other big companies that are letting you visualize the products that you want to buy in 3D in the place that you want to place it. So I think this is a very big category of good apps that people are going to use, and they're already out there. Education, there are a few examples of that. Fitness, what I saw is like visualizing the run that you made or something like that, and there is some examples. And some utility that is the measure apps and all that. I think that out of all that, the thing is that right now, there's still no real interaction with the physical world. Most of the technology that people are using right now is the 6 degrees of freedom. It's just the tracking ability. But it doesn't really relate to the table or to the walls or to the context of the scene. And I think this is a thing that will change, and this is the future of it as I see it. And if you want some more detailed reviews, there is a new guy on the block that is doing some pretty detailed reviews for apps, and it's called ARcritic.com. You can check that out. And I think that the other influencer that does that is also Robert Scoble, wrote about quite a few of them. And if I talked about where it's going, I think that we are looking from our point of view to where are things that are happening and we didn't see them before, and are utilizing things that are in the world. So some technologies, we saw some concept demos, like people made some videos out of it, but not really applications. But we already saw some upcoming apps, either in beta stage, alpha stage, or out there in the store. For example, wall recognition, you can see an app on the store that does that, even before Apple released the feature. Okay, they already do that. Place Note is a beta stage application, but it shows persistent augmented reality inside the room. I think it's very interesting for people that are thinking forward about this future. And multi-user, okay, I put our own app because we did look for others, but we didn't find any. This is why we chose that. And location-based, I think this is something that I was expecting to see out more, but not really. We didn't see it as a demo. I mean by that, for example, I take a photo here, I leave it, and up to GPS location, I will see the same photo again. And a lot of people, there's a lot of projects like that, but I didn't see like a live application that does that. So, but it's in development. I know at least of a few that are in development, and I don't find that so exciting, but I think it's interesting still. And about AirCore and AirKit, I think when I'm talking about AirKit, it's the same as AirCore. From technical point of view, there is not a lot of difference. It might diverge in the future, but right now this is the situation. And for good reasons, they okay, if people want to talk technology, they are welcome to a discussion later on. I will not take your time for that. But if you want to bridge the two platforms and just develop for one, both the 3D engines, Unity and Unreal, are given this option out of the box, kind of. Okay, Unity is still in experimental mode, but it will be released very soon, a stable version. And just some general news that I think are kind of interesting for in this space is that Microsoft released some mixed reality, which is actually VR. It's not mixed at all, but it tells you a little bit about where they are going. And actually yesterday there was a meeting with them, they showed it. I couldn't make it there, but some people I'm sure that are sitting here have been there, and probably it's interesting to understand where we are going with that. And I said something about Robert Scoble. I think people that are following this space maybe know about the controversy. I have no idea about it, so I will not talk about it. Some interesting demos is that Snap did some location-based AR. They actually bought the patent from Israeli company, and they did it with Jeff Koon, with an artist, and it wasn't successful. I mean, most of the reviews were kind of, it's lame. And not a lot of people used it, and still it shows you where they are going, and they are going very strongly in this direction. Blipper is a big AR startup in the UK that is also doing location-based AR, and if you don't know about them, you should maybe read about them. And some Israeli startups, Innoviz that raised some funds, and Astralink, which is new and doing some interesting things with augmented reality, and Beyond, which was kind of Israeli, but now it's in Los Angeles. So I think I already took too much time, right? And today Meetup is not about the state of AR as much as I talked about in the last few meetups, because actually we want today to learn from people that have been in the trenches before us and saw the hype cycles and whatever, and to hear them and to learn from them. So, Andrea? Yeah. So, just a word, Andrea is co-organizing these events with me, and so she will introduce herself.
So hello everybody, I'm Andrea. I'm very excited to be here. To give you some information about me, I'm a partner at Revenue Capital, and this is what we do. And one of my partners is in the audience. If he'd like to say hello, I think he's videotaping right now, so he has limitation with his arms. But my background is product management and also growth strategies, but I also have deep roots in film and entertainment, and for many years I've been following VR and AR from Silicon Valley, and I'm really excited to do the same here from Israel, because I think you guys are going to build some really, really cool stuff. And it's also my pleasure this evening to introduce our first shout-out speaker. By shout-out, we mean that we're trying to get the community to come together and introduce job opportunities, news events, launches, and even issues you might be having with the project or issues you might be having with the company, where the community can really help you guys out. So basically, we're stronger together, and a community is here to help each other out. So it's my honor to introduce our first shout-out speaker, who is from Magic Leap. Is it Tamar?
So Marianne, please. Huh?
So man, talk to you about it. We're not talking. We decided we were going to be here. If someone wants to hear a little bit about what we're doing in Israel, we'll be here after it will mingle a bit, but we're not speaking about it.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to speak.
Yeah.
What I talked with Marianne is just that I will say out Tamar's name. She'll say hello. So people will know to approach her after that. And there are the contact details over there, as you can see. If you're interested in, and this is the job
You guys are
description.
recruiting, though. That's the big.
Right,
That's the
so-
big to-do, right?
Yeah,
So, you guys, if anyone is a visual designer or prototyper, Magic Leap is looking for you.
So maybe
And that's the person
later
to
on.
talk to over there.
Or send your whatever email there, right?
Exactly.
And
And, actually, do you have a sign-up paper?
I do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, we're going to be passing out sign-up forms, so we'd really like you guys to share your information so we can get opportunities and news events and special offers to you. Meetup isn't exactly the best place to do that, so that helps us get the information to you faster.
We're thinking about a newsletter, maybe with some news, but yeah, we'll see if you want that.
And let us know.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let me play a little clip, I guess.
I don't know how to get that. Is this one?
Yeah, and let's start. I'll play it. It's like 9 minutes in.
Maybe it's ready.
All right, so everyone, now it's time for the big show. We have two amazing speakers for you this evening who are user experience gurus. And I thought, what a better way to introduce them than with Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, who demoed VR Spaces in October. And I'm going to play you a little clip from The Late Show. Here we go.
Stay low.
Oops, wait. Sorry, here we go.
Oh, Apple.
I don't know. Wait, but it's on the
Sorry.
oh, it's right there.
We need an emergency UX designer to fix this.
I know it's there.
So now it's somebody know to do juggling or something? That's a good time.
Where's the dog? We need a cute dog.
So. And Shahab? Shahab? Ah, really? Okay. Okay. Let's see. אומרים, אתה צריך משהו רק לחבר את המחשב, נכון?
Learn how to use the clicker.
Just
There's like 5 buttons on.
these two arrows.
You just have to choose VLC.
Yeah, we're just trying to pull it up.
Where's Microsoft when you need it?
I know. This is.
Maybe it's because of the 500,000 tabs that are open.
חבר'ה, הקובץ זה 0 בייטס, זה קובץ לא באמת קיים.
כן.
It's a shortcut.
Well, we actually checked the movie before, but of course this happens now. So maybe we should.
Okay.
Okay. So the video was supposed to introduce the speakers, right?
Yeah, so we're supposed to introduce the speakers.
Oh.
So let's see. But it's okay if we don't have it.
We'll walk on.
Why don't you do it in the break between them?
Yeah, we'll do it in the break between them. Okay, let's do
Okay,
that.
so you want to
Okay.
follow?
Yes. So basically, tonight's speakers are going to help us learn how to develop products that don't suck, and are they have deep backgrounds. Yeah. Well, they have deep backgrounds in user experience design and behavioral design, and they've worked for many companies, Coca-Cola, Simagin, Intel, OMEC Interactive, and they've helped numerous startups as well. So, our first speaker, Henri Orr.
Hi, I'm Henri Orr and I'm a behavioral designer. I was asked to put the entire talk into a single sentence for my title, so the title is Try Not to Kill People. Quick hands up if you're developing an augmented reality product right now. not as many people as I thought. How many of you are developing a product that's outside or has a radius of more than like 2 meters back and forth? 1, 2, 3. Listen. Okay, so I'm Omrio. I'm from Or Innovation. We're a behavioral design studio. What we do is take the behavioral sciences, that's neuroscience, practical psychology, and behavioral economics, and we put that into products and make sure they don't, they're human, that they don't suck or kill people. Okay, so this lecture is going to be really as practical as I can make it. And it's short. I could do this slide deck in 2 hours. We're doing it in half an hour, so try and get through it as quickly as possible. This is Valetta Channing. She's blind. She can't see a thing. If you put a suitcase with $1 million in front of her, she will not see it and won't take the money. But if you pass a ball to her, she'll catch it. She won't know that she's catching it, but she'll catch it. Because she's got a damaged occipital cortex with a functioning premotor cortex, which means she can see the object when it's moving. And her hand will automatically just move to, like our hand automatically tries to catch it. This is just to show that we function automatically. Not everything goes through a prefrontal. We don't think of everything that we do. It happens automatically. Similarly, there's something called Babinski syndrome. If you have this, then and a guy is completely blind. A man is, you throw a ball at him, it hits his head and falls on the floor. But he's convinced he can see. Tell him that he's blind. He says no. Ask him to put his fingers up. He won't be able to count your fingers. He won't be able to. And but he will be convinced he can see, and he'll argue about it. Our brain tricks us in more ways than one. Most of what you think you see right now is actually a simulation that's going on inside your brain, and it can very easily convince you of things that aren't true. Last thing, first rule of Fight Club is augmented reality is not web. The worst thing, what's the worst thing that can happen? A bad UX designer does a bad web design. What's the worst thing that can happen? Bad conversion. Brand suffers a little bit. That's about it. Augmented reality, what's the worst that can happen? Death. A child, 9-year-old runs into the street chasing a Pokemon. So it's not the same thing. If web is 70% practical psychology, 20% behavioral economics, and 10% neuroscience, augmented reality is the other way around. It's 70% neuroscience. It's the hardwiring. It's things, processes that we don't think about and are automatic. Right, so I tried to condense all of the things we have to say into 3 main big issues. These are the ones we'll talk and go into depth with. The big 3, don't step on the brain's assumptions. We assume lots of things. Our brain just doesn't, you could know that the virtual object is virtual, but still assume these things. Understand the space that goes with your product, and of course design for your device. We'll run through the design for your device one, because you probably all know it. Okay, first one, don't step on the brain's assumptions. First one is we assume objects interact correctly with the real world. So, 9-year-old, I'm making up apps. A 9-year-old kid has a dragon app, and he chases after it because it's running around the house. And the dragon app will just go through a wall, and the kid will break his nose. He will know it's not a real object, but he will assume it won't go through a wall. Let's invent another one. So, tour guide app. By the way, if you need a question, if something is not understood, ask, and we'll leave a little time at the end anyway for questions. Right, so let's do an augmented reality app that's a tour guide. You have a virtual person that's standing in front of us. We walk after him. He points nice things out. What could go wrong? All right. Yeah, walk into a wall. So he's blocking some of our eyesight. In our brain is some code, is a script that you've all been walking on a trail behind someone when you walk relatively close, and you notice that your brain automatically follows their footsteps, right? Because we assume that if that person sees a cliff, he's going to turn right, and then we'll just turn right with him, because we can't see the cliff. So you're going to walk behind this virtual tour guide. You won't see the hole. What will the virtual tour guide do? Walk on top of the hole, and you'll fall into it. How do we solve this?
Make the virtual guide fall.
Mobilize.
Calculate the virtual man's ability to fall through holes.
Mobilize.
Mobilize for your device. That's a good idea. Some would make him transparent. That doesn't always work. There's the gorilla thing. You know the gorilla experiment. You're concentrating on what he's doing and saying you won't look at things even if you can technically see them. one trick is, because no one's going to be holding their device up anyway for 4.5 hours walking around the city, just ping. Just detach the walking process from the virtual process. Say, have a voice ping go, ping, there's something here, you stop, you look up, and then you voice. So he doesn't walk, and then you don't crash into things. For just one possibility. Right, we confused virtual elements for real danger. Movement is movement, and our brain sees movement as real, even if it's virtual. Let's invent a motorcycle helmet. So we're driving our motorcycle with our virtual reality motorcycle helmet down the street, and our best friend calls us, and in from the right comes his phone app. This is our best friend. What happens?
You answer it.
What That's true, but you answer it from a ditch or from that bus stop over there. Because when you're driving on a motorcycle and something swooshes in from the right, you're going to swerve. That woman she's blind and she caught a tennis ball. You're going to swerve.
But I'll still answer the call.
But you'll probably have to call with a broken leg and to prove how awesome you are. And then he'll say it's the wrong number. It's a virtual object, but it moves. How would you fix this? Anyone? Ideas?
You can, only by hearing. You can.
Right, so that's a good idea. So let's say you have a ping, a voice, some sort of sound that always comes half a second before a virtual element. Right? So every time you hear that ping, you know, okay, now something's going to appear. Prepares you. I would never swoosh anything from any place to any place. Why not have two anchors? Right? Two little grey dots that are always there. And then you hear the ping, the dot starts glowing just a little bit, and then whatever graphic element you want will come out of that dot. So you hear it, you know it's coming, and then you know where it's coming from. And most likely it'll still kill people. Let's hope self-driving motorcycles are a thing. It has to be tested. We need an anchor to understand scale. This is easy if anyone's developed an app. Here's a living room. I took away all shadow, all light, so it's the easiest possible living room you can look at. How big is this cube? Right, so there's nothing. It can be huge and in the middle, it can be close and right next to us. Shadows help, not very much. Not too much. I mean, shadows are good, but the moment you have shadows, you have to have the lighting perfect, and you have to have texture, and all these things aren't very good right now. I mean, we don't know what Magic Leap is doing, but generally it's not very good on mobile right now. And so that won't help. The best thing to do is always start an object on an object next to an object. If it's on the table, you know what the scale is. Then you can move it, because our brain already knows how big it is. Another option is to maybe have a puppy that's puppy-sized. Or I wouldn't say a dragon that's dragon-sized, but you know what I mean. If the object is the size it should be, then you know what it is. If it's a watch that you're selling and it's the size of a watch, it's fine. If it's a watch the size of a building, you're in trouble. Give people a reset option. This is quick and easy. Virtual elements get confusing. In the real world, confusing is a problem. You have to let people just stop and restart. Just at any point, there should be an option to go stop. Take these elements away, pause them, whatever it is. I need to concentrate on the real world. Okay, understand, I think I'm going very fast. It's fine. Understand the space that goes with the product. Everyone has this problem. Let's start. Map-based interactions. Who can name a map-based interaction game? Apple Maps. Augmented reality game. Pokemon Go. Anyone recognize this? This is real. Yeah, Pokemon Go sort of kills people. As you could imagine, what do you have to do in a map-based interaction? You have to know where everything is. If you don't want to materialize your Pokemon 20 feet off a bridge, because the kid's standing off a bridge, his device is up on the bridge. You put it 20 feet off the edge of the bridge, he tries to get it, he falls off. Put it in the middle of the highway, he falls off. This one died hit by a truck, moment after catching a rare Pokemon. So you have to know where you're designing for, know the areas. We'll get to that. What is the interaction radius? If I'm fighting a monster, for the people who are outside, if I'm fighting a monster, there's an interaction radius. The monster can shoot at me 10 meters, 15 meters, and I can run around. That's a circle. So the spaces where I can put, if it's on a map, the spaces I can put this circle are have to know where they are. This is the map, this is the, these are the public areas. So if a 15-meter radius, that means a 50-meter radius area can only do Icarabin and maybe a few other places. You have to think about these things if you materialize it, even if the monster is in the middle of the public square, but the radius is in the middle of a road, you can have kids in that list. What can't we see? Virtual objects hide real objects. The kid chasing the dragon, he chases the dragon and he doesn't see the corner of the table. He can't. The dragon is in the way. Let's look at this one. So we have a card, one of these cool Google cards, because we look at the shop and we want to find out some information about it. It's great, it's floating, it's wonderful, and it's blocking the view to this alley where cars and motorcycles and things come out of. You have to know, always think about what your virtual element is blocking. Not only, just like the tour guide is blocking that little hole over there, even if you're standing still and looking at a shop, you might be at the entrance to an alley. Okay, design for your device, think battery, think overheating. We all know this. Battery is about 30% battery for an hour of gameplay. Alright. There's a little mechanism in our head at the moment our phone starts to heat up, we panic and we stop. You know that? You know, it's just a little bit too hot and then you just stop whatever you're doing because you think you're going to overheat your phone. Augmented reality and virtual reality eat up battery and heat up phones. And so if the device is heating up, or so the way to solve this essentially is to not have augmented reality so much. You have an app, it can be 2D for most of it. People are going to get tired anyway, we can get to that in a minute. You can have short bursts of augmented reality and the rest of it in 2D, easier to develop as well. At least for now, until the super battery charges in 2 seconds to come out. Keep it short, 3 minutes and your arms get tired. It's called gorilla arm syndrome. It's a real thing that some guy invented and it probably isn't real. The point is that you holding things up, doing the washing, whatever it is, holding things up for too long makes your arms go tired, and do that for too much and you do some sort of damage. 3 minutes is the maximum anyone's going to give you. We're going to have goggles eventually, but until then, if it's a game, it's a 3-minute level base, and then give them probably at least a minute of other interactions. So you've held up the device and you're chasing after the cat or the mouse or whatever it is, and when you're done, at least 1 minute worth of interaction down, so that your hands can get used to it and you're collecting the loot and you're going through the cards that you've collected or whatever it is before you start another level. Right. Phones hate it when you move fast.
Question about what
yes.
you said. What about apps or games with that, you have to hold the device only with one hand?
What, you mean what is the reduction in the amount of time you can hold the phone? Well, it depends on the person, I imagine. 100, I think it's probably the same. It's not so much a matter of how much your muscles can necessarily, the set of muscles you need to lift something here up to this size are a different set of muscles than you usually use. We're going to have much more buff. The Y generation is going to be much more buff. So it doesn't really matter. So if you're holding, I'm sure you can have a reduction. I bet it's about 45 seconds. But we'd have to test. It's quite easy. Lazy, I guess. One hand and two hands would be the same thing. You'd have the fatigue in your shoulder either way. That's probably that when you look at, when you know yourself as well, when you have to use a phone with one hand, you notice yourself constantly changing hands. Probably about every minute and a half. When it starts getting uncomfortable. In gameplay, you can stretch that. Predictable, slow movements. So everyone here who's developed anything knows that AR doesn't like fast, quick movements. It looks wonky, it moves around. It's also hard for our eyes. Our eyes have this thing that we don't record fast movements, because eyes, sorry, I keep having to show things. Eyes have to move very quickly. They dart from one point to the other. And as they move from one point to the other, they have a blur, right? But you don't see the blur. You've noticed you don't see the blur? Look from one side to the other, you'll see that there's no blur. You just move from one point to the other. But there's a quarter second where you've moved. that quarter second is actually added to the next thing you've seen. So if you notice that every time you look at a clock, the first second that you look at looks really long. Ever done that before? Have you ever gone like this to a clock and noticed that the first second is a bit longer than the rest of the seconds as you come in? It's because all of the time that your eyes took to move to that clock got cancelled out and added to the first image seen afterwards. So that image is actually longer than it actually was looking at it. So phones hate this, the moving around with all they have to, the faster you move around, the more frame rate becomes an issue. So design your device to be slow. You can design, also by the way, virtual elements don't blur, the world does blur, this is also confusing. Design anchor points, design places so you have to move this way, and then that way, and then that way, relatively slowly, rather than allowing people to just go wild. This is an in-design issue. Okay, I get complaints about this one. Hand gestures are clunky in mobile devices. I have a claim that hand gestures are clunky at all. I saw Minority Report and hated it. Everyone loves the swooshing, but they're clunky in mobile devices, obviously. If you're holding your phone here, this is very hard to do. If you've got goggles on, this is very hard to do. This is Gorilla. For the goggles to see a hand, this is Gorilla arm fatigue. Hand gestures are clunky, unless you have a special glove that can do it down here. It's fine to have them, especially if your game includes a gun sort of movement or something of that type, but it should be as rare as humanly possible. Okay, Aperture.
Wait, actually, I have a question about the other, because I remember that there was a company, Israeli startup companies that were working on the gesture recognition SDK, and maybe earlier, I'm not sure, but I'm kind of like, and I think they really did want to connect the two dots, the AR kit and their own SDK. So basically you are saying it's a really difficult problem to solve because of the neurological...
Yeah, solve it. Magic, we've got a magical, super-powered device that can perfectly detect where your fingers are. So I can do anything, right? But it has to be in front of the camera, doesn't it? And the camera is always facing forward with an aperture of about 60 degrees. So you have
to design your experience to the one that is kind of like, I don't know, that uses your hand in such a way that doesn't...
No matter what gesture you're looking at. I'm not even talking about the gestures themselves. I mean, doing this may be complicated. The Vulcan thing, it's complicated. But the fact that you have to move your hand all the way here, people don't want to do this. We're used to a mouse. A mouse is this. There needs to be an augmented reality mouse, which, by the way, I have ideas for if you want to design one of those. That's what's going to be at the end. It's going to be a little clicker, or maybe just a wristband that does that, and you'll just do this. And this will, you have a little virtual cursor. It's not going to be hand gestures and waving, because you can do that for 2 minutes and you're done. No one's going to type like that. You're always going to type like this.
No Tom Cruise fast.
Huh?
No Tom Cruise fast.
No Tom Cruise for you.
No Minority Report
running through movies. It's going to be
Gotta be a little bit cooler.
So mobile aperture is 60 degrees. Our actual aperture is, the human aperture is, if you don't have glaucoma, 260, 240? 240 degrees roughly, I think. So you can see this much. A phone can see that much. This is horrible. It's horrible for your sense of location. It's horrible for scale. It changes the entire experience, and you have to design for this. So things coming in, and this relates to everything we talked about before, is the reset option, things that appear in and out of frame. Because the whole point now of the AR Kit, AR Core, is that you can place an object here, look over here, and then come back to the object that was there, right? But with this small aperture, that becomes a much harder task. We're used to seeing some sort of representation of it in the eye. Worse, it doesn't act like a window. You have a camera looking out, so it feels like you're looking through a window. Now, again, use an AR app. Hold it at a certain length, and we sort of automatically, our brain automatically wants to hold it in the same distance, so that's fine. But try to move it forward and back. It immediately takes you out of the illusion. It screws with your brain. Because your brain expects to see more of to see a larger aperture as you get closer, like you would with a window. But you don't have that in augmented reality. You have that 60 degrees and it stays the same. And so design your experience when you design it to stay the same. Don't have very small text in a way that someone has to move closer to look at it. Because if he looks at it, if he does that, then he's, wait a minute, something is weird and wonky, and sort of leave the illusion. Hey, there you go, finished. Thank you. Yes?
The limitation of the aperture is something limitation now, or with something will never be.
That's a great question that you have other people here that might be able to answer. Currently, a cell phone has a 60-degree aperture.
What about
HoloLens?
DSLRs?
HoloLens doesn't have much more than that. SLR doesn't have.
What about professional camera?
Right, so GoPro, I think, has 100 or something of that related. 90? Yeah, so GoPro's better. And GoPro is essentially a fish lens. It's essentially, like, it looks weird. Yeah, it's a bit of a fishbowl in there. So you have a much better aperture, but if you're close to it, your nose gets bigger.
Yeah,
right? Aperture is important. If the goggles work, if you have a full field of view with full virtual field of view, then you're fine, right? Because then I put my little dragon egg over here, I turn my head, and I still sort of see it there, right? And then I have all the context, and I'm still good. But the moment I have to move all the way here, this is, my brain's trying to displace me from the real world into the screen all the time, and then moving back is a pain. Anyone? Ah, that was nice. I must be really clear. Okay?
Can you elaborate a little bit? So you were talking about a clicker as being an easier interface.
Yes.
So of all the possibilities you've considered, you still think the wristband or the clicker is the best way to go?
Well, clicker you wouldn't have. There already are these companies that have, it's a bit clunky, but I bet it'll get better. Like you're going to eventually have one of those Lance Armstrong armbands that can detect, that can scan your tendons and then tell you roughly what your hand gesture is. And then you just need to do this. That's your little mouse pad. You thought of this before?
Oh yes, of course.
Okay. So then you just move things around. The point is that your hands want to be down when you work, because this is the natural state of your hands. You can do this forever. At best, if you're leaning on something, then you can do that. Otherwise, you'll be constantly looking down with your device so that your hands can be here.
Now, one question related to that. Have you considered a chest harness? Most people are not going to want to wear them most of the time, but if you take a gamer who's very serious, and we give them a little chest mount over here, 2 arms, holding their phone in place, strapped over the shoulders, they will be able to play arms free.
Okay. So we've got a little harness.
Light, very light.
It comes out with a little screen.
Think of a selfie stick, but much smaller.
Yeah, but they have to see the screen.
Right, of course.
Right? So the screen is eventually roughly around here.
Right.
And then there's not gesture control. Because to get to the screen, you have to do this, right? So we've eliminated gesture control. If gamers probably use shoot 'em ups, you'll just have a virtual gun. Well, just get a virtual gun that has a screen on top of it. I think those exist already. And then the gun points where the screen goes, and you're roughly there. Yeah, question.
What are your lessons for mental overload? In the case, we go back to the slides where you show the bike scenario, and there is 2 visual elements. What is your lessons from your experience about the benchmark for mental load?
Yeah, so mental fatigue, mental load.
No, not mental fatigue. Mental load. When 2 visual objects coming to you, and your brain just don't go.
Right.
Okay.
So too many things on the screen at once, or
that you have to concentrate.
Right. So you're always going to have to. This is going to be terrible.
Yeah.
There we go. So this would be the basics. So if ever anyone creates an augmented reality motorcycle helmet that doesn't kill people, it will probably have just about these, and they're always going to be in the same place. Right, so your fuel is told to you, your drive, your gear, and how fast you go. No mental load, it's just preventing you from having to look down. Anything above this adds to your mental load. So, again, if you're really good at mapping things. If we're in the future and Tom Cruise has discovered stuff, and so you're going to have like a line on the road itself telling you to turn left or right instead of a map, maybe. That has disadvantages because it might kill people, because that line hides a person that was crossing the road. So we have to detect these things. So this is why the headline is "Don't kill people," because you have to always know what the augmented reality object is hiding. But that's something that wouldn't add too much to mental load, because if it's inside the context of reality, then it might as well be a sign. Translation is a big thing. Google already does this. You're driving down the road, and the goggles, the only thing they do is take the street signs and translate them. Then it looks like it's the same mental load as everything else, it's just in your language. Lowers your mental load. Yes? You asked a question earlier.
I didn't understand if now people are developing AR for the VR glasses. Why VR glasses are not enough?
No, VR and AR are two different things.
Yeah, I know, but when you put a Oculus,
Yeah.
not glasses, and you have something there that recognizes your hand, it means you have a camera that knows where your hand is. So what is missing is put the input from the camera instead of the virtual reality.
Sure, in VR, theoretically, not really done properly yet, but say you have a Super Connect or whatever and it knows your fingers, perfect device. And I put my hand in front of the camera and it can tell me where my fingers are and create a virtual object that looks exactly like my hand. That would be great. It doesn't exist, but it would be great. But I'd still have to keep my hand up all the time.
No, I didn't talk about where your hand is. I wonder about, you talk about limitations, about a lot of limitation of doing that in phones. And I didn't understand if people are doing that now in all the headset for VR, because I don't understand in the middle of hardware what is missing to do AR in VR elements.
I didn't get
What
it.
do you mean with
Yeah,
VR?
no,
Why can't we do gesture control in AR because we do it so well in VR, is what you're saying?
לא,
Why-
לא.
No, it's not about
זה
gesture
זה
control.
מההתחלה בעברית, בסדר?
כן,
זה תרגם. לא הצלחתי להבין בכללי האם עכשיו יש אנשים שמפתחים AR על הדיווייסים של VR. כי אני לא מבינה למה אתה מראה כאן המון הגבלות שיש לטלפון, לעשות את זה על טלפון. אבל אם אתה תעשה את זה על VR, קסדה של VR...
אז אולי הטרמינולוגיה לא כל כך טובה, כי קסדות VR אין להם את היכולת להציג, הן חוסמות את המציאות, הן לא מאפשרות להציג על גבי המציאות. את מדברת אולי קסדות AR. יש גם קסדות שהן קסדות AR. ויש גם אנשים שמפתחים לזה, פשוט זה הרבה פחות נפוץ.
אבל מה זה אומר הן חוסמות את המציאות? הרי בסופו של דבר יש שם מצלמה, נכון?
Okay, so she's asking about the technology. The point is that a VR element, a VR headset doesn't have a camera, right? So a VR helmet is blocked. You see 100% VR.
But
Augmented design.
I had some demo that recognized my hand.
It might have like a Kinect type camera.
I think it's negative, I'm not sure.
It might be, but the point is that what you see isn't reality. You see a completely virtual reality,
Because
even if it recognizes your hand. Like even
because
if
the software decide it. I mean,
Yes.
what is the difference? When I'm looking at my phone, I'm looking at the input of my camera. What is the difference
Yes,
of
theoretically.
looking in VR elements of the input of the camera?
Theoretically, you could put a camera, two cameras in front of your Oculus Rift, play them inside your Oculus Rift, and turn it into an augmented reality device. The problem is, okay, so the problem is that we don't need it. The problem is that now that first of all, now you're actually looking through a camera, and your interaction with the real world is going to be weird, right? Because again, your span is very different from you might as well have a HoloLens, which actually has you can see the real world and it projects onto the real world, rather than crash into things because the camera's aperture isn't exactly right to the way you're used to doing things. It's a little bit in front, it doesn't zoom, it doesn't correct itself so much. As far as gesture controls, yeah, sure. It would work, but you still have to lift your hand up, and that would be annoying. So that's my argument. My argument isn't that it doesn't work, my argument is that it annoys people and that they're never gonna want it.
Well, last question, just because we don't want to...
Just one comment.
Yeah.
So there is a company who's doing the AR inside the VR. So they place here a camera which looks outside, and that's all for them, the field of view. But there's a problem with latency because you still go through the camera and project it into a virtual screen. And then you have the other problem which you need to solve is the understanding of the scene. And that's HoloLens is doing a great job of that, but it's not an easy thing to do.
It's not a solved problem right now. Maybe it will be in the near future, and we hope so, but still not there. Right?
Question or?
Yeah, one last question. Your fascination with dragons.
Fascinated with anything. I had examples of throwing balls on walls I had from all of them, and I changed it to dragons. Like 10 minutes ago. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we're all creative people. We're going to pretend that we've entered a time machine, and we never saw that intro. Without further ado, we have the help of Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, who demoed VR Spaces, and we have a little clip from The Late Show.
You know, it's been a rough week for Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg just had to apologize for what's being called a tone-deaf virtual trip to Puerto Rico. Here's what happened. It started innocently enough when Zuckerberg was launching a promotion of their Facebook Spaces virtual reality feature.
All right. Hey, everyone. We are live in virtual reality. We are in Facebook Spaces, and I am here with Rachel.
Hi, everybody.
Amazing. That avatar is actually less awkward than the real Mark Zuckerberg. It's fun. It's cool. All they had to do was not use a tragedy to promote it.
All right. So now we are in a 360 video in Puerto Rico.
What? You don't go to a disaster zone to push your product. The new Dyson vacuum uses the same cyclonic action that the tornado just destroyed this town with. That did not stop. No. Thank you. That's all right. It's all right. Want me to show you pictures of the wall again? That did not stop Zuckerberg from being impressed.
One of the things that's really magical about virtual reality is you can get the feeling that you're really in a place.
It's true. With this product, it really felt like Facebook was up its own ass. Wow! It's so realistic! Oh, look, there's the exact spot where we pulled this idea from. We got a great show for you tonight. Oh, man, oh.
Okay, and we have a great second half of our show. So what can this clip teach us? Well, first of all, even the Zuck can have a really, really bad day. But second, we need to remember at all times the cardinal rule of product, which is that it's not about the cool tech, it's how our audience feels when they're using our cool tech. And without further ado, we have our second speaker who's going to take us on an amazing AR road trip, and that is Shahar.
אז מה העניינים?
So, because of the time, I want to skip a little bit ahead and then we'll go back. Every year, once a year, in the AWE conference, there's a tradition we gather all the people, all the augmented people and all the VR people, and then we see what's best, what's better, right? And the VR people always say, we get more money. The augmented people say, we do this and this, and we'll show you what. And here is my take on this, okay? I think that whatever VR is going to be, whatever VR is going to reach, AR is going to be much bigger. Now it's not that VR is not good or it's not good enough or it's not something. It's a very good experience, but it is still a tangled or very immersive, very intense experience that is not for everyone. Not everyone wants that experience. It's good for games, it's good for education, it's good for a lot of use cases. But augmented reality is actually, like Omri was starting to eventually tell about, it's going to be something for the daily user, for the daily use case. And we need to think about this when we design things. So for example, the motorcycle example was perfect for this. You don't need UI. And if you don't need UI in order to not be a mental load, how do you design something? And if you don't have your hands over here and you have a clicker on your hand or something to control, how do you control an app without UI, without control? So, going back. So I was invited just to try and, I don't know, explain how we got here. Because 10 years ago, this was my start. I saw a movie I will show you in a minute. What I saw that blew my mind, and then since then we had a lot of things and events and I don't know developments, and I can show you like a brief of it. If anything that you're going to tell me now going to surprise me in any way, it's not that I'm being kind of a jerk or something. I really mean it. I've seen so many things and I've heard so many things. So if you are going to surprise me, so I will give you an hour of consulting for free. I will sign an NDA, whatever you want. I really have seen a lot, and I'm willing to share anything, everything, whatever you want, because of the one thing, of the one reason is that because all I really want to do is evangelize this technology, because I really like the concept of having something that is so daily. Let's think about the difference between the PC and the mobile phone. The PC is something that we work on, we create stuff on, we do stuff in, but on the phone we just use it, right? It's just there. It just happens to be with us from the moment we wake to the moment we go to sleep, right? But we don't think this is a technology anymore. This is just something that happens to be in our pocket all the time. The same thing is going to happen here with VR and AR. AR is going to just be there. That's something we need to automatically think that or design to something like this. So the verticals and the use cases of augmented reality, I don't know. Let's question. What do you think are from these kind of from the verticals that you see or the use cases that you think of right now on AR? What is the biggest one that you can think of right now? I don't know. Shout them out. What do you think? Yeah. Tourism. Fantastic. Okay. For translation or something, right? Or for guiding you in somewhere. So yeah. Quest. Okay, like a game in another city or another. Fantastic. So let's just go through. Okay, navigation, indoor, outdoor. Omri talked about this. So, like, let's say that we are going in we drive in our car, it will tell us where to go, then we come back to we pull by the place, and then it will tell us what office, it will guide us to the office. We're going to have the meeting, right? It's like a business meeting. Or industry, you saw the okay, I will show something there. Education, that's I think that safety, we could have something that will tell us where there are pits, right? Where there are like holes in the ground that we don't step on, and stuff like that. AR will let us see kind of the invisible information. It will be sort of like the thing that shows us what is there, but it doesn't have a visual representation, right? It's an information that exists in the world, but we don't really see it in sort of way. So this is kind of the UI that you should or try to think about, with all the complications of overload that we talked about. And what I'm going to try to tell you is how we got from, how's the laser doing? This? No. Okay, never mind. So how we got from here, from the AR markers to kind of a scene perception or scene understanding point of way. Like, what was the route from this to this? And so let's begin. My story begins in 2007, sort of. So that's what a friend of mine showed me in 2007. He said, "Okay, Shachar, you have to see this. Let's watch this." And if you have comments, you feel free, right? It's not
Looks like a Terminator.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
This is like I just said that we need less information, right? And this is a lot of UI, right? This is a lot of stuff, but still you understand where this is going, right? Now it's understandable where we are going with this. It's kind of everyone can be a mechanic today, because we can just show you how to fix your car or how to do whatever you want to do, right? You can just have something that will show you what I do next, and that's it. If it's understandable, if it's clear, if it's something that everyone can understand, or your user can understand, so I can do this. But again, if this is an overwhelming UI, so this movie can be something like the Tom Cruise of the augmented, right? The augmented instructions. After this, so after this movie, I came back home. I saw it with my colleague, and I were kind of students in Holon in HIT, and we saw this. I don't know. I couldn't sleep for like 2 days, and ideas kind of blew my mind, and.
תבחר את המצגת.
ללחוץ בצד השני? So, ideas blew my mind, and of course, I had a new girlfriend at the time. She turned out to be my wife, and we started up talking about this like for hours in anywhere, everywhere, and but the thing is that I was telling before to the guys that my wife is like she's the like if I don't know, she didn't have an email before she met me,
like 10 years ago, okay? She's like, no technology at all. She's like, we both, if it wasn't for augmented reality, I don't know if I would be like a tech person, but it's like
A Luddite.
what?
In English, the nice word is Luddite. Luddite.
Fantastic, I don't know, I'll tell her this. Because she doesn't have Facebook or something, but the only apps she uses, for example, is Instagram and WhatsApp, I don't know, something like that's the only thing she has on her phone, right? So it's nothing more than that. But she could stand here and explain about augmented reality like a lot, like good. And because we sat and thought about a lot of ideas, like, I don't know, having a portfolio for your work, and let's say you are a dress designer, because we were students at the time, so let's say you're a dress designer and you want to go to sell your dresses for someone, so you don't need to walk with all your dresses to someone and make them dress, and it doesn't fit, and so you just bring a marker and put it on the floor, and then you stand over there, and then you can see yourself in the dress, right? And you just select a design or something. It could be done. It could be done also back then. So a lot of ideas like this, and but my guy my friend in the college told me we must do something. We cannot just keep it in as a PowerPoint presentations like everyone else at the time. We must do something. But the thing is that the technology was not really, like, it was only, we were Flash developers, I don't know, at the time, and the only thing that was exist there is like for C or C++ kind of hardcore like libraries. Luckily the Japanese developer called Sakusha, I don't know if it's his real name or not, but that's how I know the guy. And he was translating this library to Flash, and that was born, came to the world FLAR Toolkit, FL Flash AR Toolkit. AR Toolkit is a library that exists until today, but there was a library for Flash, and the only idea, I don't know if, is there anyone that hasn't seen like this shape ever? Okay, so good. So you all know what these are, right? The markers, right? So the only idea of these kind of things was that we can track the black square, and then we can understand the pattern inside, and then understand the identity of the plane that we put, the virtual plane that we put above it. Then that was the goal, right? And this was how it looked back then, or the technology. That was the quality. Show you. So speaking of, take a look at the speed. This is real time, kind of, that's not me, but I tried to build kind of the Flash apps that I had like years ago, but it didn't work, so maybe next time. But that was actually a real speed of using this thing, and he actually made a lot of smoothing as well. But whenever you see the little the cube fade in, fade out, that's where the marker tracking lost, right? That's kind of yeah. Over there, there's like a marker lost tracking, and that was the technology back then. Nothing else, nothing more, nothing. If you made the marker bigger, the object was bigger. You could, of course, control the scale and the size of everything on the marker.
When was that?
That's 8 years ago. The video, it's kind of 10 years ago, 2008, this video. Why he brought a video and why he did it in Vimeo and not YouTube, why is it so special? Because it's a multi-marker app. That was an app that could run 2 markers or 3 markers at a time. He's holding a marker in the end with his mouth, and then that's 2. That was the miracle of this demo, right? And I'm showing you how, like, what was the beginning. Now, what can you do with this? So the first thing, and that's, you see this is a good picture. You see the other one here. That's the only proof that it was 10 years ago.
Exactly the same.
Or better said, that was before I met my wife who dressed me. Everyone at the time had a business card. That's kind of, you wrote code to the AR community. You had to have a kind of a business card with this marker thing. And what I did on it, I constantly tried to create some things that would be usable for others, usable for, I don't know, non-coder people. I write code, but I don't call myself a software engineer. Prototyping is kind of more adjust, I don't know. But I did stuff that people could use and add their own content, right? Add their own stuff on it. So you could, whatever you could do in this app, you could take a business card, right? You put your card, Another thing in the future was that you could actually change what's written here. Because at the beginning you couldn't change. That's what's come with the app and that's what you have. And in the future we actually managed to create something that changes the pattern. But eventually in this app you could control how the visualization of your work would be. Would it be like you show your, you take it's not a phone, you put it in front of your laptop and then you can swipe with your mouse like between planes of information, or you could turn the cube, or you could turn your card, or you could make the card rotate automatically, or whatever you wanted, but you could do this with a simple like UI that I made for the person, right? So that was that one. The second one that I made was that you would hold the two markers, this green thing. I didn't say in the beginning a lot, but I'm a game designer in the core, so I had to do some games. So this was like like your treasure, and all the circles are coming at you, and you need to stop them. How do you stop them? You hold your two markers, and when they are far or close, this creates kind of an electricity between them, and if they're close it's stronger, and if they're farther it's weaker. But the red ones are stronger, the blue ones are weaker, so you would need to do kind of to play with this. But the design, and this is also complementing something you said earlier, the design was a little fast. Like the balls were moving a little fast, and eventually the tracking lost because you would have to move like so fast, right? And it broke. It didn't work. This game was a complete failure. The second complete big failure is, can someone guess on what's the big design failure in this kind of thing?
You need a screen to look at.
What's that?
You need to look at the screen or your phone.
There was no phone, but back at the time, but you only worked in front of a computer. So I was sitting in front of a computer and doing this, yeah. So that was bad anyway. But the thing is that it's not connected to anything. It's not connected to a reality. It's not augmented reality. It's just, it could be, I could just take the camera, put something like I don't know, a white space out of it, right? A black space, a black canvas, and then just do it with the two markers. It's just joysticks, right? It's not something that makes it unique. It's not something that turns this experience, augmented reality doesn't turn this experience into something extraordinary, or it doesn't speak with the environment, or I don't know, something like this, right? It's just a 2D game, and it could be done anything with anything, with everything. So I thought about something else. I thought about how can I do a game when I'm yeah, right. So how do I make a game that I move the user? I want the user to move. I want the user to do something. I want the user to behave differently or change their behavior, but I cannot change the position of the marker. I have to place the marker and leave it there, and make sure that the computer identifies the marker, and that's it. I don't move the thing. So I saw the movie actually later on, but I placed the marker somewhere. I made a bigger one. I placed it on the floor. I placed the computer in front of the user, looking a little bit to the marker and on me. and then I created some sort of a level design of walls that come in at me, like cubes that come at you. And then you would have to, to fit yourself. What's the problem in this design?
How can you know if the user fit himself correctly?
Exactly. How do you know when the user touches a cube? How do you know when I have an error, right? If there's a wall here, comes to the hand, how do you know that? So what I did was attaching another markers on the hands or on your limbs. But so it wasn't so good, but it was funny. I'll tell you how this game got bigger in the next version. So the limitations of the and I'm going to give you another question now. So brace yourselves. You see the paper over there? When the guy showing that he's tracking a bent paper, that was also like a big thing back then. Like it was really hard to track something that is a marker that is not pure square. But so the paper had to be straight. The tracking was a little flickering if it moved too fast, etc., etc., etc. How do you solve something like this? Do you have any ideas of a paper that has to be straight? Let's say, as you see here, what I did next with the business card, I made it, I put it on a carton box or this. I put it on paltziv, I don't know how to say it in English, or on this material, and this stays straight, right? How do you make something that can be tracked from a lot of directions, right? But these are the problem. The solution was a cube. Making a cube from a few markers. You would take a few markers, attach them together, and then when this marker disappears, so this marker exists, and then I can potentially have the same augmentation on top of the same location because I know what's the orientation of the whole thing together, right? This is very similar. Eventually, and I will show you this game. This was the kind of the best game that I think the best design for the marker technology. This was the beginning of what later on Vuforia created, the box kind of tracking, when you track a box for marketing. Do you know you can take a book, scan it, put it on Vuforia or whatever, Metaio or whatever the platform was, then you can track the book or the box from all over the direction. That was the beginning. Okay. Let me show you just a few minutes from this game. Julian Oliver, he showed it in 2007. Later on, he did. I think you know. You should know. The inventor of this eventually created some sort of an app called Color AR, which is kind of a drawing of animals, and then you let your kids to draw, to paint inside this drawing. Then you put your phone on, and then it pops the creature, but colored, like with your colors. So this guy was the same creator of that, the later app. He made a cube of markers, and then whenever he rotates the level, the character moves according to that direction. That worked fantastic. It was very good design. It had, I don't know, 100 levels or something. This is kind of show all the levels and how to solve them or something, but it also gets to like working with two markers at the same time. It's crazy. It's a very, very good design, and it was very, very stable. That was the main thing that I was showing the cube for, because look at this part. This is very nice. So it moves and so that was kind of the best design I saw for making the. I mean, I'm referring to the cube. the best thing that they did in order to make it, solidify experience. I don't know what to. Okay, so at that point of time, we got to. We are now kind of 2009 or so. We had to start making our final project in the college, and of course we decided that we are going to do something with augmented reality. And I'm getting to your question. You asked about the VR. Yeah. So at the beginning, the first idea was making because my degree was in how to use technology in education, and I'm also very fond of the idea in the back of having a quest in anywhere. So we thought about the museum idea. How do we make the visitor experience more engaging and more fun? Why don't we make something inside the museum? I will tell you very quickly the idea because I want to get to the other part of the scene understanding. So the idea was, let's say that you have a statue, a statue of the kind of the exhibition for the, how do you say, Adam Kadmon, I don't know. Prehistoric kind of exhibition. So you come with your whatever it is that you're holding, doesn't matter if it's a phone or glasses or whatever, and then you look at the person and it comes a virtual presentation and he says, my friend, I have to go hunting. I broke my spear. Get me all the parts I need to build a new spear. Okay? I'm talking about kids now, okay? So the kids run around in the museum looking for spear parts. And they get, do you know when you're in the museum in that kind of section, you have a lot of drawers that has a lot of stones, but no one ever opens them because they're boring. So that is when they open this drawer and they see all these rocks. And a lot of times, I did a kind of like in an audience like this, like parents and kids, and I was asking the kids, parents shut up, kids, what rock will you choose for the person? What rock will you take now and get to the person? And everyone was pointing, of course, on this one. And then, not because it's big, I actually had a big, I tried another time where I really pictured a kind of a big drawer and they picked the right one. And that was kind of the message of how to incorporate kind of the two, okay, in an interesting way. But, luckily or not, my mentor at the time, we were just about to start programming something like this, but my mentor at the time left the HIT and I had to, luckily or not, make a new project. And eventually we came up with this. So let's say you need to operate this. Remember the BMW movie, the car with the technician? So let's say you need to operate this, but you don't know how. But if I would tell you what you need to do, so it would be a lot easier. So that was the idea. But take a look at the difference between what I showed you before and what I show you now. That is a lot less UI than it was before. Okay? That was actually intentional. So let me show you a little bit of the video of what we actually managed to make back then. That I could save. I managed to save. And look at the quality of the camera. That was like the, I don't know when, but I don't know what camera. It was not a phone even, so. What's happening right now is that I'm clicking with a mouse on my laptop, but on the live demo, or whatever we did back then, on stage, we actually had a voice control, so you actually spoke to the device. I'll show you what the device I did. This is a live microgal, of course, and you get instructions, step-by-step instructions how to make a popcorn, okay, just as a demo. And eventually you're told to turn the heating, the timer on, and close the door, etc., etc., etc. Okay? Open the door, close the door, open the door, put the thing, close the door, but I forgot to close the door. Right? I forgot to close the door. So that was a big design failure. Why? Because when I presented this in this conference, you would see I presented it. This guy, I don't remember the name, but he was actually at the first time it happened. Look at the device. I will tell you a bit in a second what's the device. He was sitting in front of the thing, activating the thing, telling it, hey, I want to make a popcorn, and it starts to run, the door starts to open, and he says, and he just sits there, waiting for I don't know, so make it cook, I don't know, whatever you do, so you already know what you need to do, so just cook, right? You don't need me. But then we explained about the fact that you actually need to open the door, so there was a lot of things that we didn't even think that would happen. The device, because of your question, I'll show you what was here. What was that thing? It was a Vuzix camera, Vuzix eyeglasses. Back at the time, that was the only thing we could find that was relatively cheap. That was about $700 or something. We didn't buy this. This was the development. We put a camera on, just like you said. This was black. This was the only use case this had was that you sit, you plug it to your computer with a USB, and you listen to music, you see movies, or whatever, like a mobile movie kind of movie screen. And we put a camera on top of it, put both of them in the computer, took the image from the camera, put it inside, and like you said, exactly like you said, this is kind of an AR instead of VR, right? But we dreamed on a thing like this exactly, but with no black thing that will block it. What I wanted to show you is okay, never mind. So you get the idea. So it's kind of the so you get the idea of what I was going for, and the only thing that the real controls here, like if you really wanted to, let's say, make a laundry machine or make a factory trainer, so you would only need to change XML or an editor that we later on designed to be a visual step-by-step instruction created. So it was really easy to use with a library of all these kind of rotating thingies and etc. I'll skip all there's a lot of interaction ideas that we had. Let's say a lot of, you talked also about, Omri also talked about how you click and how you do all the clicking and here or there with gestures, no gestures. So there was a lot of thinking about rings with markers and distances between the markers. Let's say I have two markers on my fingers, and when I'm doing this, I'm making a click. Or when I'm doing this, I'm making a click. I don't have to put my hand here all the time. I have a representation. I have a thing going on. But when I'm just showing a controlling marker, I'm doing something with it, and then I'm leaving it, putting back my hand. So that was the click, right? I don't really need to have a constant pressure in my hand. So there was a lot of ideas back then about this, and that work actually got me to know Ori Inbar, and which is the AWE creator. And if you don't know, I will show you in a minute. And Georg Klein, I would like to show you one movie of his. So okay. When you asked me, Omri asked me one thing. What was the one thing? Or not the one, but what were the things that everyone thinks that they are reinventing now that exist always? That the idea was like forever, right? So here is one of them. One of them.
By the way, I think that at least 3 or 4
of
the demos you already showed, they are already reinvented as AR-kit apps.
Exactly.
For example, the blocks where you have to move your body and these kind of things. There is an app doing that, and I think one of the interesting, if you really go over all the things that are being created now, you see that so many things are just reinventions of things that have been tried before. Usually they failed because of user experience or because they are not interesting enough. But yeah.
Yeah. So this is only one of them. That was 2004. I wasn't even dreaming about Augmented, and it was outside, fully tracking. Like when you walked with over here, you would. There was a point cloud. It was not a. It was a steady augmentation, relatively steady. I will show you the steady augmentation of Georg Klein. I think that Georg Klein was kind of the best unknown developer. I actually met him, talked to him a lot about his work, but we tried to use it, but since it was in C and C++, we couldn't even. I don't know. We tried, but we weren't. That was the point where I decided that I'm not going to be a developer. Kind of. So,
Carl, if I can just add a little bit, that people that are interested in the algorithmic part or whatever, or what happened, we talked about in previous meetups, that it's kind of like a technological breakthrough. The ARKit and ARCon, these technologies that you're taking for given, they are based on SLAM engines. This is actually where it started, and if you are starting to learn about SLAM, this is probably one of the first videos you're going to see, and you're going to know this guy because he invented a lot of the concepts and showed that it's possible to make them, well, it's very early stage, but still.
Yeah, so exactly. These are real-time, not faked, not, I don't know, if there's a defect, you see it, okay? If there is a defect, you see it, and there are. The other half of this movie shows a lot of defects. When I started to play with this, he told me you need this and this machine with this and this language and this kind of. That was too much for me, but he shows a lot of things that eventually we created better, but that today exists better, but we will talk about how. But you can see that there are people around, it understands the points, it tracks them relatively very good, and this is 2007 presented, so happened before. Okay, I'm leaving you the link so you could also continue and see. There's a lot to see from this guy. He's really talented. So that was actually a big disappointment for us. That was 2007. We talked to him about 2009, and we tried to. Okay, it was two years ago. Like you probably made something that we can use, and that was a lot of this in the augmented reality, in the augmented instructions project, and we were pretty disappointed that we couldn't. And that was the time where we understood that if we want to make a real microwave that that I can really track, I want to take a look at the microwave, but I don't want this thing, and I don't want to hold my hand over here. Anyone has an idea why I'm doing this? Light, exactly. There was a light behind of it, and it blew the tracking off, and I don't want to do that. I want to track a microwave, I want to track a laundry machine, I want to track a machine, and also I want to track the microwave, but if I'm looking from here, I don't see the marker anymore, right? I need to track the marker, the same object, but from all the directions. How can I do this? One way, with the markers. An idea?
Invisible infrared or something like that.
Okay, simpler idea. Take the 6 markers, put them all around the object, or 5 because one sits on something, right? That's eventually how again Vuforia tried to do something. So between 2010 and 2013, a lot of things happened, like Vuforia, Metayo, a lot of startups in Israel were born, and a lot of stability started growing inside the SDK of Vuforia especially, and also Metayo later on. At the time, I was joining Omek Interactive as a game designer. That was the first time I was starting to make like hardcore games, and and we actually did a lot of this not related to AR, a lot of things for China and I don't know, US, not a lot of success. This was a lot of motion games, a lot of we were talking earlier about Kinect camera, so that was a 3D sensor, Prime Sense, Panasonic, a lot of 3D sensors at the time. I was doing a game design for this kind of thing. That was also when two of the earlier ideas of the electricity game came to live again as a hand tracking game with this kind of the same idea, and the cubes and the hole in the wall was also reborn as a motion tracking game. So that was kind of the time. There was a clay app and there was a marionette. There's a lot of ideas we did at the time, and we had hand tracking. And this was, I'm jumping to 2013, and this was the thing that we did then. So you were driving with your robot, helicopter. Again, real time, all the effects are shown. Okay, no, I don't know, no special effects. And if there are, you see them. So so this thing walks on the floor. Every time you see new virtual thingies popping up, it's because we have identified, we have tracked this area, and we can put something on it, right? We can put coins, we can put blocks. You will see in a minute there are kind of blocks coming up. And what's that?
The shadow.
The shadow, there's a lot. And you can see that the creature understands the environment, and also that when you fire, it sticks on the things, right? It sticks on the walls or the thing. That was the Intel RealSense camera, together with a tablet. And that was kind of the first demo of that, the first real serious demo that we did for this technology with scene understand. It's not scene understanding. It's reconstruction. It's kind of what happens today with or what will happen today with the AR core and AR kit. That will the next kind of feature with the 3D sensor will have. You will not only have planes in the scene. You will have the real scene that is really good. Like it's really good technology. And as you can see. Right. Okay, maybe you saw also before that the holes, you can understand the holes, right? We could understand the pits, and so that was this idea. I was a game design and a lot of things there, and I also showed it at AWE 2 years later, and a lot of fun. And what I wanted to show in this picture is that the green stuff is what we have identified and turned into a Unity environment. That was kind of the point of this image. A year before, I made these T-shirts for kind of the booth, right? For Intel, I don't know, whatever. And I used Metaio Creator for this, so I made a sort of design, and then every year I had something else. And I did something with the design, I don't know, whatever animation with Metaio. It was very, very easy at the time. I was very sad when Apple bought it, but it was obvious, kind of. I mean, it was either Intel or Apple to buy this company because of Qualcomm. But we will talk about this in another time. And but the inventor of this idea was, I don't remember the name, forgive me, he'll forgive me. It was Total Immersion company. It was 2007, I saw this video. It's not a lot of time, you can see it later. He was standing on a stage, the cameras was pointing at him, and on another screen you could see that there is a parrot popping out of his shirt, and he was actually moving on the stage and talking to the parrot. So that was a really good tracking, relatively really good, and this video also show that they had a big kind of pattern, kind of a big picture and tracking, very good tracking. They showed like a lot of features that weren't exist at the time, and I stole the idea from him. And to my surprise, that was actually a really good success. Like in 2014 or 15, I don't remember when, people like snatching this, and Intel said it was one of the biggest success of the booth because, and I didn't know why. Why? In 2007, it was like a big live show, but no one remembered. So that was a good thing for me. After the Toy Z game, the one with the robot, we did something else. We thought about, it's not we thought about, but we wanted to design your house, right? Okay, I will not show you the video, but because it's a long video, but the interaction design in this video is really important. If you design UI or experience, take a look at this video, 2010 or 7, 10. So he was a genius. He had a lot of options. This was like a 10 or 15-minute video. There's 3 of them of explaining the whole process of how he did or what he did. Fantastic. So try and take. If you're interested in this space, in this field, take a look at this video later. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to use the environment. We decided to use the environment in order to do all the things that you just cried about. Because we just cried about the fact that when you take the augmentation and drive it into a wall, then it will move through the wall, right? But we tried to solve that thing first. So, and because we had that, right? You saw that we could understand all the tracking of the environment. So, this is a real object. This is a real object. This wall, the floor, everything is real. When you take this couch and pull it or push it, it will stick. Like it will not move the wall. It will stay there. This is a virtual one. This is a virtual one. But the better thing, that was not the better thing. The better thing that happened was lighting. And what you see here was the light. That was like the biggest feature of this app. That the light, when you put it on, both the virtual elements and the real elements change the shade according to the light type. So if we color the light here.
Just to give you some historical context for that,
fantastic.
One of my friends was one of the first graduate students to work on this problem.
Fantastic.
It was actually solved in 1990.
Wow, fantastic.
Until now.
1990.
The problem of modeling light bouncing in a room, 1990, Cornell Graphics.
I'll write it down. Fantastic.
For people interested, it's still not available for mobile phones, so you'll have to wait.
Yeah. So again, this was a real sense camera with the same tablet with the robot, but with actually I didn't tell you about why we did home decoration. Again, coming back to my wife. Whenever we move an apartment, and when we were students, we were moving a lot. Every time she's a freak of interior design and that. Every time I come back home, the home looks different. Like the couch. But one thing she couldn't do, and she had to use my very important skills. She told me to take the pictures and stand somewhere so wide she can look from back in the room, right? So how does it look when a person comes in? So you have to stand like this before you stick them to the wall, and then you wait, no, take right, left, right, and then you switch a picture, and then no, I don't want that there, put it on the wall, and so that when I thought maybe I should do something like a wall painting kind of simulator, but and then it came out to be that app before. But this one, how much time do I have?
Actually, almost.
Okay, so
5 minutes.
I will not show you this demo, but
You said wall painting.
Show the best one.
yeah, I will show you. I'll show you this. Yeah, only you can see. There's a link here to like a playlist, very ancient playlist that you can take a look in, and you'll see a lot. I'll show you this, and then we can maybe, see for a question. Okay. So I do not need to show you a lot, but just take a look on this image. And I will explain a little again what's the device. These are my boss and my other boss, the studio manager and the creative director. They're standing in a room with couches and furniture and stuff. I will show you again. I'll show you that part is the important part. The rest of it is just a multiplayer shooter. The important part is what happens in the beginning. Look here. These are real objects, and they are turning into virtual environment. Okay? These are the real things, the real objects from this scene, turning into virtual objects. So, what is the difference? And I will stop it here because eventually what this turns into is like a multiplayer VR battle shooter thingy. Doesn't matter. But the important thing is that we have turned from one scene that is scanned and turned into one layer, into a layer, but every object in the scene can be extracted. Okay? So you can take this podium, you can extract it from the layer, and then you can do something. You want to do a wall, you want to make it, you replace it with something else. But that's important because you can take this object and identify it, recognize it, understand what these objects are, etc., etc. So that's the future. Whatever idea you're thinking about, whatever idea you have, it must have three things. Location. It has to have a physical location. It has to have or physical relation to something in the space. Okay? If it's a navigation app, it has to have a road to relate to. It cannot just be an arrow over here saying you have to go that direction in order to get home. No, it has to be on the space, on something physical. It has to be virtual, but in 3D. If you place an information in 2D over here saying you have to go to this and this place today, I'm aiming at Google Glass. Okay, I'm saying Google Glass. That's not augmented reality. Okay, you have to have 3D augmentations on 3D space, and you have to have, this is a should. You should have something that is relevant to me, the user. If it's not relevant to me, then it's useless, it's pointless, and more than everything, you know that movie? If you don't know that movie, please see that movie. That's again, there's a click here you will see, I will send you the rest. Hyper Reality by Matsuda. It's a fantastic example of what Omri was talking before about overloading the environment and the reset button. The reset part is the best part of that movie, how the user is trying to make a reset and he doesn't succeed, and that what he was showing there. Fantastic example, and I think that's it. There's also a good movie, Sight, but it's Israeli, but again, you can see all these movies over here, and yeah, I think that's it.
So some questions, somebody? Or are you tired? It's a bit late, I know. Sorry.
Overwhelmed.
So maybe it was a bit much to put two lectures like that. Well, one thing that I want to say that when I saw
No,
I have one of those in my
what I want to say about the examples he showed, that actually every example that he showed, I can show you the current day reinvention of it. Everything, every one of the examples he showed, it's amazing. So it just tells you that people who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it, and usually not successfully, because until now it's a lot of things fail. And well, thank you so much. And I will say just a little bit about our next meetup. Will be a little bit less formal. It will be together in collaboration with the VR AR Association, and our main speaker will Gal Lizir, CEO of Snappy, and he will tell you about his journey a little bit, and will publish the events. And that's it, I think, guys, right? Yeah, and thank you so much for coming. If you have questions,
יש לי כרטיס בטוח. לא הסתכלתי.
You calm down?
I'm happy you came up.
אבל זה גם כל VR
כל VR הוא כבר יראה איך מוכרים VR.
ברור,
It always happens. You're doomed to have some technical issue while you're trying to demonstrate something. Even though we rehearsed and we did everything we could. And yeah. Exactly. But
It's interesting to see like how
yeah, it's like you see the same things like back then. They weren't on mobile phones, and they weren't like let's say widely spread. But some people already thought through all those things, and they tried to make them happen.
I noticed like you
Yeah, a week ago. Yeah. It's very cool. Yeah. We tried to show it last time. It was an alpha in our last meeting. And we tried to show that, and we actually played with that a little bit. Some people around us played with that. It wasn't as good as it is now. I think it's much better now. And you could try it actually. And you can come by and show you. You know, we have the iPads, and you can play with it. Yeah, it's really cool. But what's really nice about it is it's out there. It's out public, and we can tell investors, you know, just go ahead, download it, try to play with it. And I think we are.
something like that, like kind of closed thing.
It's not. It's kind of a closed thing. We didn't do any marketing yet. We're trying to take it one step at a time. We're trying to engage. Maybe to collaborate with game studios, some stuff with them. So we're trying to. On one hand, we really want to succeed. Something that has potential. And on the other hand, we don't want to be. We don't want to be caught as considered as a game studio company trying to make technology. And we are no potential very.
You guys also have how you want to demo it. Interactions, right? Because I know you were using images from library.
No, the app is actually demoing. So you just use the app and you can see the technology in action.
Did you have the one point you guys were doing like or something like that?
Yeah.
You guys weren't sure if you wanted to have like
so we dropped that. We put that aside, put it aside, and we start doing something else because we figured that it's going to be really, really hard to demonstrate with Dragon because it's really nice, and we saw similar apps that were using just the same. These Irans. I think. ערן, אתה רוצה לכבות את זה So, that was good.